I wanted to make a commentary video on some tips for cutting really big wood from the spurs. So you see I'm cutting this white oak here. It's probably about 36 inches because that's the width of my bar. So down where my lanyard was measured to be like 40 inches, but up where my cut is probably 36. Anyway, first technique you can see me using here is I'm hanging off a tie-in point above me, and that really helps with the notch. Obviously that's very dangerous. You got to retrieve your tie-in point before you do your back cut. But another technique here, you're using a big saw. I'm using my knee to assist me hold that power head. So that's a 500i. It's, reasonably heavy. It's not the heaviest saw, but when I go between my two cuts, I use my knee to kind of help prop up that power head until I can place the saw in the cut. And you really want to swing back and forth and double check your corners of your notch so that you're not doing a bypass cut on either side. All right, now I did a hum bolt for a reason I'll explain in a second. Right here, you can see me cutting the corners out of both sides of my notch. And that is to prevent fiber pull going down the tree or down the stump. Now, I'm having to cut this stump like pretty high because the client specifically wanted it high. Normally, I would not want to be cutting a tree like this. This is a very difficult situation to be in. It's also very dangerous. So, I was accommodating the wishes of the client, but I don't like cutting really big trees like this from the spurs. All right. Anyway, I'm going to retrieve my line, and as I retrieve my line, you can see I pulled a rigging line in place. All right. And then I just use a running bow line on that rigging line, and we cinch it up there. Now you can see this tree is still pretty tall. If I had to estimate, I would say it's probably between 8,000 and 12,000 pounds, just based on limited experience working with white oak and cranes before, but I don't know how much it really weighs. Anyway, I'm cutting these corners out again, all right? Just being really making sure to cut these corners out, because the last thing I want is for this thing to get pulled over and then fiber pull comes off the corners of my hinges and rips down my lanyard. I mean, that's really painful when you're doing like a 500-pound piece. It's gonna possibly kill you if you're doing a 10,000-pound piece. Okay, now another thing you can see is I'm not being prideful here. I'm using Jack, my ground guy. He is spotting my bar for me. Okay, I'm not being arrogant and just thinking that I can do it on my own. He's there to help me. I'm going to use that help. That way I know that my back cut is coming in even with my apex. All right, so using a spotter, we're trying to pull it over and it's not going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spike down and get a wedge. I'm thinking that, I don't want to be near this when it falls, ideally. So we set up that back cut, pound in a wedge, see if he's able to pull it over. We're using a mini skid to try to pull it over. And he's not able to, so I have to climb back up there and whittle away at that hinge just a little bit more because it is just a spar. It has no top in it. When you're cutting a tree with no top in it, you gotta reduce your hinge width considerably. But you don't want to do too much. I mean, we think that the weight is in the direction that we want, but they're easy to misread, and a piece this heavy, it doesn't matter if you have a mini skid on the other side. If it starts to go the wrong way because you cut through your hinge, then that's it. It's over. So anyways, we whittle away at it. I was as far as I was comfortable going with it. So I come down again and I get back to the wedges. I'm going to double stack wedges and let him pull it over. He has a lot more pulling capability on it this time, now that I've cut just another 1/2 inch out of my hinge. And you can see that Humboldt notch allows it to fall a lot more flat. But look at this dirt that it launches into the air. Okay, so you don't want anybody standing around that. It could launch debris. All right, now let's talk about this with the freeze frame here. I'm going to draw some pictures to illustrate a couple of safety considerations. That's me. There's my lanyard, the yellow. All right, this is if I'm cutting it from in my spurs. First of all, that fiber pull, as demonstrated in the red, it could pull down that tree and rip right on through my lanyard, pulling me into the stump, or breaking my lanyard, breaking me, who knows. But we don't want that fiber pull to pull down my lanyard, so that's why I cut the corners out. And then another thing I want to mention is that this trunk, we want it to, ultimately try to land flat. If we were to just do like an open face notch or like a conventional notch, then the tips would hit the ground probably early, and the stump would not be as likely to just kind of fall on out to the ground. If the tips hit the ground and they're still really tall and I'm still attached to the tree about 7 feet up or so, then that stump is going to fall back towards me because the tips are pried into the ground, and then it's gonna potentially fall right back towards me. It could swipe my lanyard on the way down, or it could catapult something right next to me. It could clip my leg. It's just not a good position to be in. You try to do your best to predict everything that could go wrong, but when you're cutting really big wood, it gets harder and harder to predict. Things that you didn't think of can go wrong, and they're much higher in consequence the heavier the wood is. So when you're able to just set everything up and then get down and get away from it, that's what I like to do. I'm that way I'm in a safer place. I'm farther away while that trunk is moving through the air. All right. So hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and you guys be safe out there.